This is Professor Rudy, and this video is on how to use if statements, which are also sometimes called decision statements. If statements work on a logical statement or command. So, for example, we could say if x is greater than 5, then what's going to happen is whatever comes after that will happen as long as x is greater than 5. So this is what's going to happen. Yes, x is greater than 5. So if we come in here, we say x equals 6, this is what's going to happen. X was 6, we got here, we checked, is 6 greater than 5? Yes, because it was greater than 5, we come in here and execute this statement. Now, you can also include in this an option for what happens if it is not. So you can add else and say greater than 5. So if we run this, yes, x is greater than 5. But if I make this 2 and I run this, now it's going to do that other thing and say, no, it is not greater than 5. If this hadn't been here, if we just take that back out and we run this, it just doesn't enter this statement. It doesn't do anything. So you don't need to have the else. This is just here if you need something else to happen if your condition is not met. Now, you can also extend this to include more options. So you could do not only if and else, but you can also have what's called else if. And this else if is another condition that you want to check. So if x wasn't greater than 5, we could then check, well, is it at least greater than 0? Oops, sorry, not and, else. So you can chain these together and you can have as many as you want. The first statement has to be an if. In the middle you can have as many else ifs as you need, which is you're only going to check this else if this first if statement was not true. So x was not greater than 5, but is it greater than 0? So if we run this, this is where we get that, yes, it is this condition that is met. So in an if, else, chain, you're only going to execute one of these compartments, basically. And you can have as many lines in here as you need, and you can do whatever it is you want to do. So let's try to come up with a better example of how you might use this. So I want to determine the shirt size by weight. So I'm going to use, we'll call it W for weight, and I'll do an input statement and say enter your weight in pounds. So the user is going to enter in a value for W, and then I'm only going to put a few options in here, but I can check first is your weight less, is the weight less than 100? Because the first size I have on the chart that I'm looking at is extra small, and that's from 100 to 120 pounds. So if you're less than 100, too small for this sizing guide, let's say. But if you're not less than 100, we also want to check, well, what if you are between the next range, which is 100 to 120? So how are we going to do a range? Well, what we need to do is we need to check if W is greater than or equal to 100. So we need to check if we're past the lower range. But we also want to check if we are also less than 120. So W less than 120. Now what happens is I'm going to put each of these in parentheses. And what we want to put in between there is we want both of these conditions to be true. And we're going to do that with what is called the AND operator. This is given by 2 ampersands. So if we enter these 2 ampersands in here, we will check if this condition and this condition are met. So that means we're in this range that we want, and this is extra small is the size. So we can continue on with this idea, and I'm actually going to just copy that and put that down here. We just got to change these ranges. So now I want to go from 120 to the next value is 140, and that is a size of small. Then from 140 to 160, they're calling that medium. Else if, and we can, again, we can keep doing this as many times as we want. So then we can go from 160 to 190. That would be a large. And then I'm just going to stop it here, put the else on there, and say consider the extra sizes. Now we could have put more in here like XL, double XL, and so on, but let's just do this. So if we run this, enter the weight, so I'm going to start with the case of 110. That would be extra small. So notice this is not any kind of loop. This is only going to do this once as opposed to a while loop. So if we want to do this again, we got to run it again. Alright, so let's check my size for 95. Well, that was less than that 100, so it was too small for the sizing guide. Now we can just do a few more examples. So 150, they're called that medium. Run again. 195. That's where we're outside of the limit for large, so we're saying consider the extra sizes, and so on. So you can see how this works. Now, one thing that's interesting, and I did put this in here because I wanted to show you how you would do this AND condition, so that this condition and this condition are met. But now we can actually do this a little bit simpler. So this way makes sense and this will work, but if we remember how if statements work, we come in here, we check if W is less than 100, and if this is not true, then we come to this next condition. So we know that it is not less than 100, which means that it is greater than or equal to 100. So we don't actually even need this first condition, and this is going to be true all the way up the chain here. We only really need to check the upper limit because we've already checked. We checked here and this wasn't true, so then we checked here, and if this isn't true, it means it is greater than or equal to 120. So we could do this. Let's go in here, do these same examples. 95, too small. 110, extra small. 130, small. 190, consider X sizes. So note that the 190 is not less than 190, so we do hit the else condition there. Not a problem if you had those AND statements in there, if that makes it more clear for you, but they're not necessary, and it'll be faster to run through this way. I do want to have one other note here on if statements, which is there's another type of statement called switch case statements. And so this is a case where we've done this with a menu command. So we find a selection from a menu that has some options. So pick a number, let's say, and then we've got numbers 1, 2, 3. And with a switch case, we use switch and then the variable that we're interested in, and then we enter the cases. So case 1, you picked 1. Case 2, you picked 2. Case 3, you picked 3. Okay, so running this, enter the weight. We get to this point, we get our menu 1, 2, or 3. I picked 2, and it says you picked 2. Great. So you can do this with switch case. This is discussed in another video, but I did want to mention that the if statement can do this as well. So I'm going to comment out this switch case, which by the way is you highlight and Control R, and you can comment a whole block like that. So I can also do this with the if statement. If the selection equals 1, I can do my display. And then else if the selection equals 2. Now remember, 2 equal sign for checking if something is equal. Pick 2. So we can do the same thing, run this, enter the weight, and then pick from my menu 3, you picked 3. So the if statement can do exactly what a switch case statement can do. You just do it in this format with the equals equals and the else ifs. Keep in mind too, we had the else in an if statement. You can also do the same thing in a switch case if you use otherwise. So for switch case, it's switch case otherwise. So you can do an else. It's just coming up here otherwise. You didn't pick. And what came up right there, if I just do one single apostrophe, it thinks I'm ending the string. So if you want a single apostrophe in a string, you just type it twice, and then it knows to override that. But so then in this case, we won't see it with the menu, but if I put a value of 4 here, when I run this, we'll get that you didn't pick. We get this otherwise option because 4 was not any of these cases, so it's getting the other case. That's like the else of the statement. So that's kind of some examples of if statements, how to use them for different things.